Welcome, Gothamites, one and all, to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me, as always, the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond. Please welcome Dr. Andrea Letamendi. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, Brian.
Welcome back to another episode.
Welcome back to another one.
Yeah, lots of things have happened since our last episode, and you wanted to address a couple of things.
Yes, and I honestly feel a sense of responsibility. I often feel like what we do is a public service.
Absolutely.
And every so often we make some announcements related to what's going on in our communities, sometimes the political atmosphere, sometimes in response to natural disasters and other traumatic events that have a widespread impact. And one of the things that we try to do on the show is disseminate scientific information,
right,
and to ensure that folks know where they can access resources and knowledge about mental health and the kinds of just information and resources that we believe would be helpful for them if they have additional questions beyond the show.
Sure.
So one thing that I wanted to ensure our listeners is that we have been receiving their messages. We've been listening to and paying attention to what's going on in our communities. And we are a US-based podcast.
Yeah.
And so the election results in November impacted us personally, and in many ways, I would say that it impacted how we've addressed things on the show. I think in the last few days since the inauguration, we've had a tremendous amount of change and shifts in the political atmosphere that have impacted us personally, as well as, I think in many ways, just our role, our professions, what we do on the show and so forth. I just want to do a couple things. One thing I wanted to do was to assure people that we are going to continue to do the work that we're doing on this podcast. We will, one, continue to disseminate scientific knowledge when it comes to psychological science. And two, to the best of our ability, we will deliver on our promise to be a public service. In other words, when we feel it is necessary, we'll provide information and resources in response to the needs of our communities. And so one of the things I wanted to ask our listeners was how they believe we can help them in terms of what kinds of information or resources would they find helpful within our means, of course. And the other thing I wanted to do is continue the work that we're doing in providing very specific information about where they can get treatment. So that's the thing I'm going to start with in today's show.
Okay.
I wanted to start with just mentioning some ways that folks can access either low cost or no cost mental health care in the US. And the reason why I gathered this information is because I was realizing that a lot of people are very concerned and have, I think, very realistic anxieties around their ability to access healthcare in general, but in particular, mental health care, whether they currently are receiving mental health care through the Affordable Care Act or if they are interested in pursuing mental health care in the future. I also am wanting to, again, just remind folks that 1 in 5 of us in this country will experience some kind of mental health issue. And our main concerns, of course, in the next few years is that millions could potentially lose their health insurance. So I anticipate there will be an impact. Okay, so here are some options for those worried about how they will access low-cost mental health care in the U.S. without insurance. The first thing that I offer folks is to check your local city college or state university. Oftentimes they have psychology training programs that can offer low-cost mental health services for the purposes of training their graduate students. I want to assure folks that, yes, getting treatment from trainees and interns is pretty effective. It's solid supervised care, and oftentimes I recommend this. Another option is to check the websites of your state's mental health association, which you can find on the following website, mentalhealthamerica.net/find-affiliate. Another place to go is the American Psychological Association. This is apa.org, which does list low-cost services. Many psychologists offer what's called a sliding fee scale. This means that they charge based on how much you can afford to pay. So they're sort of like a matrix or a list, if you will, of certain income brackets and then what the expectation is as far as payments go. That's a sliding fee scale. Some psychologists even offer certain services for free, pro bono, and that's something to look up if necessary. Last couple things as advice. Call your local hospitals and ask what kind of mental health services they offer and at what price. Oftentimes, large cities will have teaching hospitals where doctors are trained, and they often provide low or no-cost services. A place to go online is the National Association of Free and Charitable Clinics. By definition, these clinics restrict eligibility for their services to individuals who are uninsured or underinsured, and therefore have limited access to primary or specialty healthcare, including mental health care. And then the last couple things I wanted to mention were the resources for specific populations. Veterans and military service members can go to the Soldiers Project. That's thesoldiersproject.org. And LGBTQ youth, adolescents, and young adults can access the Trevor Project's chat line. That can be found on the trevorproject.org. Finally, anyone in crisis who is experiencing severe depression, suicidality, sexual assault, or abuse can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. I want to stress and just remind folks that, yes, these are U.S.-based resources and recommendations, and I admit that that's what we sort of limited this to.
Sure.
I welcome other additions and recommendations to add to this list. I posted this on Twitter. I'm happy to post it on our other websites and to continue to expand on this list and get the word out.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Of course. I believe that our podcast should be a resource for folks. I want to emphasize that we are, by nature of our collective values, we are inclusive. We believe that anybody can have or should have access to mental health care, no matter what their status is, no matter where they come from, no matter what their demographic is. And so anything that we can do to help disseminate this information, I think we're absolutely willing to do. And as I said before, please let us know if there's any additional suggestions or recommendations that you would like to know more about so that we can just provide those resources.
That's what makes you the superhero psychologist.
Oh,
disseminating all the knowledge to all the superheroes, many of which I believe are our listeners. So,
well, we wouldn't be here without our listeners. So
no, absolutely.
It's the least I can do.
And they've always been very supportive of us online, on Twitter, on Facebook, on IMZ. Those of you who have reached out have all been absolutely fantastic. So we at the Arkham Sessions, thank you. All right, then.
Wanna play?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we are discussing a brand new episode of the new Batman Adventures. This one reintroduces a couple of characters, you might say. I mean, we've seen Dick Grayson already, but we have never seen him as Nightwing until this episode. And I've got to say, his hair creeps me out. But we're going to talk about that. This episode, of course, is You Scratch My Back. What do you think of?
Fine, but can we talk about the episode first?
Well, I thought maybe it would be a little sort of reciprocal, you'd scratch my back, and then we'll talk about the episode. But if you want to do it the other way around, that's fine. Drea, when you hear You Scratch My Back, what other character would you imagine would be a part of this episode?
Clearly Catwoman.
And
I don't think we have other scratchy type characters that we talk about.
Are there any itchy characters, maybe?
To be scratched?
No, not so much.
Oh, Man-Bat might be itchy.
I imagine he
also
might be. He might be itchy.
He might be scratchy.
Could be. All right. So let's talk about this episode. Drea, we start out on a rooftop, as we tend to do. We're watching villains do their villainous things, but Batman is not the one watching. It is Nightwing. Nightwing, who has got a heinous mullet that turned ponytail. I was not, admittedly, a huge Teen Titans reader. So once Dick Grayson, skedaddled from Batman's side, I sort of, I knew he was there, but I didn't necessarily follow him a great deal. But there is someone else watching this group, and that is Batman and his new sidekick, Batgirl. Not Tim Drake. We've really sort of replaced Robin with Batgirl in these last few episodes.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I have this theory. Now, we've seen her really take on this role as the sidekick. I have this theory that she really pushed her way in, that she insisted, that she fought extra hard to prove herself.
Well, we've seen her training.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him push her quite a distance in terms of her training. We have seen her getting high scores
in the danger room,
in the Batcave. But dead is dead.
Right. I think and we've talked about this, he's particularly harsh with her.
Right.
And Tim is still very young. So on nights like these, it's Batgirl who's out there accompanying Batman as he spies on Nightwing.
Do you like that? Do you feel like Batman is maybe taking his time a little bit before introducing Robin to the worst of the worst, or do you think that maybe
that's a Jason Todd question, but we can't talk about Jason Todd.
I'm not asking about Jason Todd. I'm suggesting maybe even after whatever has happened with Dick Grayson. Mm-hmm. And clearly he has more experience with Barbara at this point. Do you think it's possible that that maybe he is learning a little something and keeping Tim back?
I don't know that he's deliberately, you mean keeping Tim back, like not necessarily pushing him to
not necessarily allowing him to, I think he's probably training. I think he's probably holding down the fort at the Batcave. Although we very rarely ever see him hanging out at the Batcave with Alfred. It's usually Batman and Batgirl at this point. But I think maybe he is really making sure Robin is ready.
Do you think this is the phase in which Batman expects Tim Drake to be eating rats, eating down in the cave, eating rats? I don't know.
I'm not going to make him eat rats, sir. I did.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this incarnation of
not
Bruce
that
Wayne
harsh.
ever ate rats or forced
and
Dick Grayson or Tim Drake.
He ate rats not because he had to. It was almost like a
rite of passage,
masochistic thing.
Right. Well, okay, so let's talk about the fact that Batman and Batgirl have sort of bumped into Nightwing at this point, and Nightwing isn't all that thrilled about the fact that they are there. Let's take a listen.
This is my gig. If I needed you, I'd have called.
I don't really blame him. I think that he's trying to establish his independence.
But do you establish your independence in Gotham City, where we've already established that there's a different hero? Maybe get out of town. Let Batman and his sidekick take it. You can't walk away and then expect to patrol the same territory.
Well, we didn't really get the departure. We didn't really get the story of him walking away.
Right.
And why he's not with them.
But you certainly get a sense that he's bitter now. Here, let's talk about your first interpretation as you see Nightwing. this is your first impression. We've seen Dick Grayson. We've even seen him within the new Batman Adventures. We saw him interact with Tim Drake as he was being trained by Batman, and he told him to watch out for the rules because that third one is a killer. But this is your opportunity to see Dick Grayson as Nightwing for the first time, and he is not happy about maybe still having to prove himself or still having to be part of a team when he feels like he is capable of doing it himself.
Well, he doesn't want to be a sidekick anymore. He wants to establish that he alone, without assistance and without having to assist someone else, he's able to take care of business when it comes to crime fighting. And I do think he feels as though he has something to prove. So there's an extra level of this kind of emotional involvement in it that by accomplishing something on his own will not just mean that he's a good crime fighter and he's fulfilling his duty as a good superhero or as a vigilante, however he sees himself, however he identifies. But on top of that, that he has truly broken from Batman's grip.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's an element of resentment to that, you know, like he's got to prove himself, and he also needs to demonstrate that what happened to him via Batman's or Bruce Wayne's, I don't know, parenting, mentorship, training, that was all worth something, but it also means that he has to establish his separate identity.
Right. Well, so that leads me to my next question. You mentioned he doesn't want to feel like a sidekick anymore. Do you think that Batman holds back his sidekicks emotionally or maybe even with their confidence? Do you think that Dick felt like he was being held back by Batman? And do you think that Tim Drake is going to end up feeling the exact same way, given the fact that he's not even on the streets right now helping Batman? And how long before you think Barbara starts to feel
There's like 10 questions in there.
I'm just saying, well, it's one question with 10 facets.
Parts.
It's you know, it all comes down to, do you think that Batman is holding them back? Do you think that he is in some way stunting them?
No, I think that it depends on the sidekick, right? It depends on who the individual is. Tim Drake and Dick Grayson are very different as far as their loyalty and their relationship with Batman. Mm-hmm. Batgirl has something different to prove, but she certainly has that sense of needing to, in many ways, overcompensate and demonstrate that she can be just as good as the boys. And I think that gender plays a huge role in the way that she identifies herself as a superhero.
Right.
Not to differentiate herself, but to demonstrate that she's just as good, just as brave, just as powerful. And I think just as cunning, just as smart. That's really important for her.
Right.
The thing with Batman is that I think he's willing to allow her to have that space to explore those things. With Dick Grayson, I think there's always been that element of competition. And as Dick Grayson has gotten older and established his own superhero identity separate from Batman, I think that naturally Batman's going to feel a sense of competition and uncertainty around what that means for him. It's
interesting that you say competition, because when he's given the opportunity, he takes off, he glides down and ends up getting into a fight with a couple of different thugs. And as he leaves them behind, his former mentor and colleague Batgirl behind, Batgirl turns to Batman and says,
"You're the one who raised him."
It is almost like father, like son.
Right.
He is competing, or at least becoming you. Like he takes after you.
What do you think that is? Do you mean the bitterness and the isolation? Because, Batman was like that as well. He believed that he was really the right person to patrol the streets, that only he could fulfill certain duties, that some things were too dangerous for even his his peers, his sidekicks.
Yeah.
So do you think there's an element of that with Dick Grayson, the same kind of grandiosity?
Maybe. I think the question that comes up in my head, and this is something that I wanted to discuss with you, and I'm glad that we're getting into it this early on. Remember what Dick Grayson was like when we first saw him in Christmas with the Joker?
Yes.
He was far more the optimist. He was far more positive. He seemed to have a better grasp of who he was as a kid. And you were talking about the differences between young Dick Grayson and young Bruce Wayne, and how Dick Grayson almost seemed to be a little healthier than Bruce Wayne may have been in that time, possibly because of Bruce Wayne and having someone there who could mentor him, who could nurture him the way that he was being nurtured, right up until Robin's Reckoning, when Robin sort of took a turn. But
Right.
at the end of that two-parter, Robin proved that he was not necessarily he was not going to go down a dark path, and it kind of gave him this opportunity to show that he was the light of the two. If Batman was the dark, he was the light. They were both doing good, but there was two sides of the same coin. Now, here is my question. Dick Grayson is not that optimist anymore. He is different. He is almost like Batman in that he is kind of dark now. He's a bit... what do you think?
Well, that hairstyle is so dark.
And it must have taken a long time to get to that point. And as I think back on it, when we saw Dick Grayson at the end of the episode with Tim Drake, did Dick have the ponytail? Like, we saw him leaning up against the wall there. Was he wearing the long hair, or have we gone even longer since that point that Dick has been able to grow out the mullet
I don't know.
ponytail? Kind of weird.
Could have been there all along.
Well, Dick Grayson gets his opportunity to take down these goons by himself. Nightwing is chasing one goon around the corner of a giant crate. That goon comes face to face with Batman and is terrified. Batman does nothing. He just stares at him and lets him go on by. Nightwing comes around and Batman gives him the smug,
"He's all yours."
have you ever known Batman to be so... I don't know. He's sort of almost letting Nightwing get schooled here. Or is he? I mean, is he legitimately... I
don't think there was any threat. I
it's
think
defiant, though.
It's weird.
I could take this guy down, but you don't want me to. I'm not going to.
I think that really exemplifies some of his grandiosity, in that he believes that this would have been over by now. In a way, I don't know. This is similar to a mama cat, just grabbing a mouse and not killing it and letting it kind of run around so that her babies can get to it. I think there's a little bit of overseeing Dick Grayson's ability to... And
maybe even a little, I will always be there over your shoulder.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, even he's asserting his dominance a little bit here. It's like, I'm going to let you have him, but just so you know, I'll always be sitting here watching.
Right.
But, Nightwing is able to take down one of the thugs, but just before he is attacked by the other thug, Batgirl comes in and takes that thug down. That doesn't necessarily make Nightwing any happier. After all, he was trying to prove that he could do this himself, and now the person who replaced him, essentially, is the one who is proving to get his back. That upsets him. He goes off in a tizzy, comes across someone that we haven't seen in a while, and that's Selina Kyle. Now, Drea, let's talk about where we've seen Selina up to this point. Constantly, trying to prove herself to Batman, but not really. I mean, it's funny because it's as if the writers, and I appreciate the fact that the characters remain consistent, but the writers are almost like, well, if we need a villain to pull a fast one on one of the heroes, we're going to write a Catwoman episode, because she's done it to Batman. She's partnered up with him only to end up sort of still prove that she's still the cat burglar. She tried to team up with Batgirl in Batgirl Returns. Mm-hmm. Basically tried to get Batgirl to become her sidekick, may have actually won her over if it hadn't been for the fact that she was trying to pull one over on Barbara's father. And then now she is trying to win over Nightwing. So would you say that you and I noted that Catwoman really changed during Tiger? Yeah. Like it was the turning into a cat-like creature that almost changed her from being a simple lover of animals, willing to do anything, even rob someone in order to get enough money to buy up land to create a sanctuary for blah, blah, blah. Like, it was that moment that she became straight up villain. But in every time we see her, she tries to convince us that she has changed. Take a listen to what she says to Nightwing.
Why is it so hard for you people to accept that I've changed? Doesn't anybody believe in redemption anymore?
Why come to me?
Who else would give me the chance? Certainly not your boss.
He's not my boss.
Of course not. You're your own man now, aren't you?
Okay, I need to know one thing after having listened to this. And because she says something to Batman later. In fact, let's go ahead and play what she says to Batman later, as Batman says that he doesn't trust Selina Kyle. This is her response, and then I'm going to get to my question.
I want you to stay away from Nightwing.
Mother birds usually know when to let their robins leave the nest. He's a big boy wonder now. A man wonder, in fact.
She is telling us that Catwoman knows who Nightwing is. Catwoman is aware that Nightwing is the same person that used to be Robin.
Right. And I don't think that it takes much to gather that.
Do you not? I mean, isn't part of the whole thing to be kind of the myth to have Batman and
but
Robin?
Who else is there? I feel like there's this new kid. Well, there's a much
smaller.
younger kid.
Right.
It doesn't add up.
Maybe that's why Batman's holding him back until he can reach Dick's age, and then he can be like, "See, he's been here all along."
Just swap him out. I think that she's interacted with Robin, so she knows Dick Grayson's voice, and she knows all his moves. She's seen them before.
But she doesn't know Batman is Bruce. How long do you think this could go on before Catwoman deduces Batman's identity? How many different times can you come across like, man, that guy hangs out with kids? Wait, hold on a second. I feel like Catwoman would be able to.
Maybe his throwing in Barbara Gordon into the mix is his way of throwing off the idea or the conclusion that folks might get to that he is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
because he doesn't live with her. She's not an adopted daughter.
Right. So ultimately, Catwoman and Nightwing are teaming up against Enrique El Gancho. This is a smuggler, a one-handed. He's got a hook.
Well, that's what gancho means. That means hook.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason to have you on this show.
He is from Colombia. He's some kind of enforcer.
Yeah, and he's a smuggler. He's a guy who is bringing in these crates of whatever, and it appears to be like all these old antiquities, these vases, these pieces of rare artifacts, and Catwoman. I mean, let's cut to the chase. Ultimately, Catwoman wants something that's in one of these vases. She's smashing them, and it turns out that there's a jewel that she stole and hid inside one of the shipments. And now that the shipment is there, she has been playing Dick Grayson all along. And she feels like she's gotten away with it. That is until the tables are turned. And it turns out that Dick Grayson has been working with Batman and Batgirl all along. So, Drea, that sort of puts a pretty serious spin on our analysis a moment ago. It turns out Dick isn't necessarily as bitter and angry at Batman as we once thought. He's actually been in cahoots, and they have led Catwoman to think that the two of them are against one another this whole time. What? It's
a good story.
Yeah, it is a good story.
My favorite part is when Nightwing goes to Catwoman's home.
Yeah.
And she's there, of course, trying to seduce him and letting him know that she's loyal to him in regards to their partnership with this, this particular hook guy in their quest to take him down. And Batman shows up, and there's kind of like an altercation there. Batman insists that, Nightwing should stay out of it, and that he's being played. And then Barbara Gordon is out in a building watching them as another layer of surveillance / mistrust. So there are multiple layers, and I don't know. Is it Shakespearean? Is it opening doors, closing windows? What's that? It's not quite that play that I hate.
Noises off?
Noises off. That's more
For
chaos.
starters, yeah, noises off isn't Shakespeare.
No. I mean, what is this? What is this really?
Farce?
Capturing? Yeah, there's something about it that's like, obviously the double crossing is an element that we've seen a lot, but the kind of the layers of it and the duplicity, the we as the audience think something is something that it's actually not.
Red herring, right?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Batman clearly isn't as enamored with Selina Kyle as he once was. Remember, he was in love with this woman and, was willing to do just about anything and everything in order to, I mean, if one could argue that there was an original character that he was willing to give that second shot to, it was Selina Kyle. He was trying to convince her not to become Catwoman during the whole Red Claw incident. Here's my question for you then. Is Batman so sort of bored or fed up with Selina that he no longer has any of those emotions for her? He does, after all, say, I don't trust you. And I say boring, and I say because I think that Batman has proven, even in this episode, that Selina is predictable. If nothing else, Selina's predictable. They already knew she had hidden a gem.
Right.
They already knew that she was going after these artifacts for that gem. They already knew that they could play her from the very beginning by simply making her think that the two of them were at odds with one another. Is Bruce / Batman kind of bored of Selina?
I don't know that he's bored of her so much as he's burnt out by her.
Right.
He's sort of been scratched by her so many times that he's got no blood left. He's like, I got nothing. I don't want to play.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the episode, we sort of get Dick's real response to the entire situation when Batgirl comes up in the Batboat to pick him up, and he says,
You know me. Always happy to have a little help.
so he's still a team player.
He is. I think it was authentic earlier when he was a bit more defiant and refusing to take on help. Catwoman wasn't there at the time, so I felt
No,
like
but
that
they knew she was there. Like that's the whole reveal is from the very beginning of the episode. They weren't necessarily, they knew.
That's when it started?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
They
felt
weren't
like it
just
started-
tricking us, or they weren't just tricking Selina. They were tricking us. They were all there watching this thing go down.
So that's
with
when the ruse
hook.
started.
Yeah, the hook I'm sorry. The
That's
ruse,
when the hook.
Yeah, that's
that
when the
is
hook
when the
started.
gancho started.
Yeah, the ruse actually started somewhere during the opening credits before we came in.
That's when the messers become the messies.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. They ended up. They were in cahoots from the beginning because they knew Catwoman would be there. They knew that as long as Catwoman witnessed them having their little altercation, she would then try to, rub up on Nightwing.
I think there is still something to his, to the.
Well, clearly
the
there is.
hairstyle. There's still something to the rebellious hairstyle.
The Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah.
Clearly there is, because we know that he's not living at Wayne Manor anymore. We know that he's trying to be his own character, Nightwing versus Robin. We know that there's something in Bruce's rules that may have driven him apart. We know that presumably one of his costumes, because there is no Jason Todd in this universe, presumably one of his costumes is sitting there on display as a monument in the Batcave, and we know that Alfred misses him, so it's not like he's coming over for Sunday dinners every week. Clearly there's something going on with Dick Grayson and Batman. We're just not seeing what it is yet.
Well, I want to assert that some of this is very normal when it comes to development. That Dick Grayson's need his attempts to develop his own identity separate from Batman and the whole Bat family, Alfred, everybody. All of that is actually pretty developmentally normal, and in many ways Batman should support it and normalize it and just kind of expect that it's going to happen. How old do you think Dick Grayson is at this point? Because remember, he was in college.
22, 23?
There was a point where we realized he was in college.
Yeah. Well, it's probably been a couple of years since
He's
we
like
last saw
mid-20s.
him. Yeah, so I would say he's probably been out of college a couple of years. He's probably not 25. He's probably closer to like 22, 23.
Okay. I mean, with legs like those.
I wasn't really paying much attention. I couldn't get past the hair.
I know. The hair is intense. Well, and this is a question for you. I think you know this, but around what age does the brain kind of complete its full development?
40. No.
No.
Oh. 9.
No.
No.
Try somewhere in the middle.
18.
No.
What is the I mean, the first two were jokes, but what
I know.
but
Well, it depends, of course, on the person, but 25, 26 is actually the age at which the brain becomes fully developed. And I think that one of the reasons it's important for us to remember that is in our society, 18 is in many ways, 18 and 21 signify adulthood, right?
Yeah.
There are certain rights or certain privileges you have when you get to these ages. 18 is the age of maturity or adulthood. But scientifically, it's really 25, 26, 27 when we have reached the peak of the development of our brain and therefore have the emotional capacity, the cognitive capacity, the ability to have a good sense, a solid sense of our identity, and the ability to manage other people, our relationships with other people. So there's a range development that I want to mention. It's an age range between 17 to 28, and that is where I believe Dick Grayson is.
Sure. He's definitely not 30 yet.
He's not 30 and he's not 17. I mean...
Right. Not with legs like those.
Not with legs like those. Otherwise, I couldn't say legs like those. I would get into trouble. So he's definitely over 18.
You know he's a cartoon.
Right? I know.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, there is.
So this is the age of independence, 17 to 28. This is the stage in early adulthood in which psychosocial development is really around two things: identity and intimacy. I mentioned identity a bit. That would be, our ability to understand who we are, what our personality traits are, what we like about ourselves, what we want to work on, how we see ourselves. That does not happen until around this age range. In many ways, for folks in their late 20s and even early 30s, that's certainly something that folks are continuing to explore.
Mm-hmm.
When I say intimacy, that refers to our ability to share our total self with someone else. What does that mean? It's really linked to our identity, right? Once we establish our identity, we're able to share that identity with somebody else.
Right.
One thing that's really important around this time is our ability to separate from our family of origin. And so for Dick Grayson, the family of origin is
Batman.
Uh-huh.
And he's flown the nest.
He has.
He's no longer Robin.
He's fled. He's flown.
Now he's Nightwing.
He's Nightwing. You know what? That's a really good point. That's a part of his identity development. That there's something about Robin that is immature or dependent, and Nightwing has the freedom that allows him to patrol the streets and eventually go to Bloodhaven. I don't know where he spends his days.
He's a big boy wonder now. A man wonder, in fact.
Well, and it's interesting because much psychosocial development occurring around this time period is in conjunction with the life changes you'd expect around relationships, not just leaving the home, but finding a long-term relationship, beginning to potentially form a union, start a family, not a union, a relationship union.
Yeah.
And even, of course, develop a career. There's a lot that's expected of you in that age range. You're supposed to leave your family of origin. You're supposed to develop a career. You're supposed to have a strong sense of self. You're supposed to, pair up with another human being and love that person and have them love you back and potentially start a family. There's a lot going on there. And what I think is normal about everything that Dick Grayson's experiencing is that it really falls into some of these expectations society has for him.
What I find interesting in the whole Catwoman, Dick Grayson thing is it sort of suggests, while we know that she's playing him, so it's not exactly necessarily 100% accurate, Selina Kyle was basically age appropriate for Bruce Wayne. She was a contemporary to him. She was a potential love interest. Catwoman is a cougar.
Oh, yeah.
This whole script it's deep it's got so many levels. Catwoman is a cougar.
So Nightwing is a cub?
No, he's a Nightwing.
He's a cub Nightwing.
A man wonder, in fact.
There's also something I should add about independence in that there is a myth of independence. In other words, all the things that I just said that we all need to do, guess what? Many of us don't do that until we're in our 30s and sometimes in our 40s, right? And that's actually okay. So while society has placed those expectations on us, and while psychologists and developmental psychologists have asserted that that's really the age range in which these things should be achieved, there's also this myth of independence that, in fact, for a lot of us, it does take longer, and for a lot of us, it happens earlier. So there's, unfortunately, in many ways, an additional set of struggles, and those are the struggles around what happens to me if I've not achieved these things. So anxiety, tension, an internal struggle, a sense of wanting to rebel and being afraid of leaving the home or leaving the family of origin. Culturally, sometimes there's also an expectation that leaving the family of origin doesn't necessarily have to happen at this age and is determined upon other things. So some things that the young person would consider about their caregivers or their parents around this time that produces anxiety. They won't always be there when I have a need or when I need them. I am on my own. They can't always protect me from harm. Bad things will happen to me. They won't always know what to do. I have to figure out life for myself. So a painful part of getting through this developmental stage is rethinking or shifting in the ways we think about our own caregivers and parents, moving from, oh, they're always reliable and they'll always save me, to, but what if they don't? What if they're not reliable? What if the world is actually dangerous and they can't save me when I'm in need? So I think that some of those struggles are going to be ones that Nightwing faces.
Now, what about people who you talk about people who reach that level of development later? What about the kids who have had to grow up earlier, like the kids similar to Dick Grayson,
right,
who might at a much earlier age than most other kids feel like they're already an adult? Feel like, look, I've just watched my parents be murdered at the circus. I've been raised by a vigilante. I go out and fight crime every night, even on nights where I would rather be home by a fire watching a movie with family.
Right.
I am already an adult. I'm already ready to leave. Like, do you think that maybe some of that resentment was Dick having actually reached that level of maturity even earlier than expected, and potentially wanted to fly the coop earlier than maybe even Batman was ready for?
Absolutely. I think that's realistic. I think that makes a lot of sense. Has his brain caught up with that is a question. Is he cognitively, emotionally, developmentally really there? Is he at a place where he can rely on himself, where he has established, some of the questions I just mentioned. He's established a sense of self, but he's also established and worked through his anxiety and struggle, that he's no longer caring about rebelling. Rebelling isn't a thing anymore, but it's about establishing his own sense of safety. I can reach safety on my own. I don't need my caregiver to create safety for me. And a lot of times you're right. Kids who are exposed to trauma and hardships really early on will, a number of things could manifest, but one of those possibilities is the notion that safety cannot be secured by a caregiver or an adult, and it must be achieved elsewhere.
Drea, this was a pretty good episode. I really liked it. I liked seeing Dick Grayson back. I liked seeing that he wasn't just the same old Robin. I liked seeing the fact that Catwoman is consistent. I would like to see her develop a little bit. I'd like to, after this point, after she's now tried to trick 3 different members of the Bat family, I would like maybe to see an evolution from this point going forward. But
I really do miss the Catwoman who's really kind of
blonde.
Well, I miss the Catwoman who has pupils. I miss her.
Right.
But also, I miss the Catwoman who was an advocate, who was taking action in regards to her beliefs around the environment and wildlife, right? Like,
but
she had a mission.
again, she. Do you think some of that is the resentment at wildlife now that she has become wildlife? Like, do you think she no longer cares about animals?
I think ever since she lost her pupils, she just can't see.
Even before then, the only animal she cares about now is her cat. Like, there's no. I mean, she doesn't.
Maybe she has some kind of compassion fatigue or level of empathy fatigue. That she's feeling unable to do the work that she used to do. She's feeling unable to serve the animals the way that she used to do. She's sort of reached a point of bitterness.
Yeah. Over at MZ, we had a question. Hira Singh asked, given the way Dick responds to any help offered to him, do you believe that he has pretty negative core beliefs about himself, resulting in low self-esteem? Now, take into account that we now know that their sort of spat was a bit of a red herring and just a ploy to suck Catwoman into their twist. But would someone like that, was that Dick Grayson trying too hard to convince everyone around him, maybe even himself, that he could do it on his own?
I don't know. I think some of it was authentic. That he was pulling from some truth, his truth there. And could it be from a sense of low self-worth or low self-esteem? It's very possible. I mean, the things that, again, he could potentially be struggling with is his identity and his relationships. Who am I apart from Batman? Could I actually be a separate person? Would I be considered valuable without the big bat?
Yeah.
And so those sentiments come from a place, and I think that place is very authentic. Does it mean that he can't overcome it? Does it mean that he's particularly weighted down by it? I don't know. I would love to see more of this character to kind of see what he, how he really presents, since a lot of this episode was a part of the ruse. The Messies.
Hopefully we will get to see the Messers.
The Messers.
Hopefully we will get to see more of the Messies, the Messers, Dick Grayson, Selina Kyle, Barbara Gordon, maybe even a little of Bruce Wayne. I don't know. I don't know that we're ever going to see Tim Drake again, though. I think he's hanging out with Alfred somewhere. Drea, until next week, where can people find you online?
On Twitter, I'm at Arkham Asylum Doc. I have a website, underthemaskonline.com.
And you can find me. I am on Twitter at bward028. You can find both of us. We are at Arkham Sessions on Twitter. You should come check us out on Facebook. Come like us there and join in the conversation on IMSI. Speaking of IMSI, we have not forgotten. We are most certainly going to announce the rules and the format and guidelines for the Arkham Sessions writing competition that our friend Bernard O'Shea recommended over on IMSI. We are in the process of going through sort of the legalities and things like that. We're having some folks actually take a look at it, because it's easy to recommend a competition. It's another thing when you are the entity responsible for judging the competition. We want to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row, and that everything is on the up and up, and that everyone is looked out for. That includes you guys, the writers, that includes whoever's reading, and that includes us, because we're going to be judging. So stick tight. As soon as we know exactly what all of the rules are, you're going to be able to find it over at imz.com/Arkham. There are also a bunch of other conversations going on over there right now, so go join them. You should also follow our friends at Fanbase Press. They are at fanbase_press on Twitter. You can go to fanbasepress.com to get all of the information on their comic books and all of their upcoming signings and events and convention appearances, and even some other really great podcasts. Until next week, I am Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
And together we are
the Arkham Sessions.
We're out of here.